Good afternoon, can you hear me? First and foremost, I would like to tell that there will be two speakers. I will speak only for the first 2 minutes, because since this summer, Daugavgriva fortress cannot be imagined without the festival comet, and we will speak about two important things. So again, we'll have the second presenter, Dāvis Kaņepe, because since this summer, since actually 2015, that is the time when we have been cooperating with Dāvis, so we have worked together. And I believe that Festival Comet is now much more than this fortress, because it's an opportunity. But what actually this fortress is? It's the largest fortress that is preserved in the territory of Latvia since the 17th century, and it's the second most important site in Riga, just after the Riga city center. And after a lengthy litigation, it has been taken away from the previous lessor and returned to the state, and now it's managed by the privatization agency, which means that the fortress will be possibly privatized. But the state already saw what can happen when important cultural objects are leased and they are given the possibility to privatize certain sites, then it's very difficult to take them away. But since 2014, the fortress has been returned to the state, and now we have an interim stage, interim situation between something great, and I believe it will be great, and something that we'll most probably forget. But as to the fortress itself, it's not the only such fortress. The general governor of Riga at that time, who plans this fortress and many other fortresses, more than 50 fortresses actually in the whole territory of Europe, he introduced several military innovations, namely the active defense fortification, and he was inspired by the approaches in several other European countries, and the fortress could actually not be taken over unless there is treason, basically when they open the gates, or if plague arrived, which is something that cannot be avoided. And at that time it could not be treated. And because of these two things, two aspects, the powers could change, the fortress could be taken over by somebody else, and of course these powers also rebuilt the fortress, and the last variant we still have today. This is a unique building because it was preserved irrespective of the Soviet rule, irrespective of certain attempts to demolish some buildings before the war. This building was not respected, was not treated as a significant cultural site, and unfortunately this still continues today. 100 years ago, this fortress was not military significant anymore, so it's lost its significance because of the planes, because it is vulnerable from above. It becomes visible from the above, and so the system that was designed to protect the fortress did not function anymore, and a new stage, a new period for the fortress began, it became a simple warehouse or a meeting place or a regular army base. And so this continued until 1993. Currently, the fortress still, I have to say, is very invisible because it was built invisible and it stayed invisible until the modern times, and this invisibility as a military advantage still continues to exist, though it has maintained its form but lost its content. Unlike Daugavpils fortress, because they are very active, because they have Rotko center, this fortress is not so visible. For example, in the case of Daugavpils and the respective development program, fortress has a whole section to itself in the Daugavpils development plan, but in Riga development plan, Daugavgrivas fortress actually is not mentioned. The territory of this fortress is 21 hectares. And when we looked at the city development plan and the supporting materials, we determined that this fortress is not mentioned in the new development strategy of Riga as well. What is mentioned, though, certain fortification buildings at the mouth of Daugava are mentioned. This is the newest part of this fortress that was built when the sea retreated.
Daugavgrivas cietoksni var tikai attiecināt stratēģijā deklarēto kultūras vēsturiskās un ainavu telpas tā kā nosacījumu, ka ir būtiski, lai ainavas pārveidas procesā
What concerns
tās vērtību veidojošie elementi. Sanāk tā, ka Daugavgrivas cietokšņi
Daugavgriva fortress, I think
vispār netiek
that only certain references mentioned in the strategy could be attributed to it. So it is basically important to preserve the building, to preserve the actual environment. But still I have to say that this building is not treated as an individual space, but as something second grade.
Nevis pastāvīga 21 hektāru plaša vēsturiska būve ar savu reliefu, ar savām dominantēm, ar savām būvēm, bet kā kaut kas otršķirīgs. Un muzeja te nav, tā ir situācija, kurā mēs atrodamies šobrīd.
Unfortunately, this is a situation that we have now, and this is one of the projects that we have as a group. Basically, we try to play against the time. On the 18th of May, when we celebrate the Museum Day and the Museum Night, we in Bolderaja and in Daugavgriva actually found buildings that could serve as museums, though none of them actually housed museums, and there were 12 of them, and Daugavgriva Fortress was one of these buildings. As you see, we have really worked with this fortress for many years. Basically, since the end of the 90s, we always wanted to work with it, but unfortunately, this fortress was handed over for privatization and the locals could not use it. And this is one of the attempts to bring some life into the fortress. This is an artist who is painting the star of this fortress on the side of a waste container. And what his painting is called The Child of the Star, and it's a very poetic and very true story. Our group tried to work with this problematic site, and we tried to win the area with several projects. And here you can see the names of all the artists who participated in this project. These are very good artists. In 2014, when Riga was the European Capital of Culture and we had many projects, we actually had the same type of silence with regards to the fortress, because we invited not to use the fortress in these projects, but we still placed two things, two events in this fortress. We had a performance that was devoted to people who lived in this fortress, and we also had a performance devoted to two artists who met in Bolderaja for a month and a half. So, irrespective of the fact that the city does not see the fortress as an important site, it is still used by various types of peoples, those that enjoy and those that demolish and try to break it. But of course, we like those that come and want to understand and want to do something. We also have some modern art events, and we also have the National Guard who help us to take care of the fortress. But of course, all of that took place until 2014, when the festival arrived at the fortress. And now I would like to give the floor to Dāvis, who will continue.
Labdien visiem!
Good afternoon.
Šī brīdī, tā kā mums ir diezgan arī maz laika, es vairāk gribēju
At this moment in time, we don't have much time, and I wanted to spend more time, and not so much on answers, but on questions about the fortress. It is very wonderful that this festival actually was created as an answer to the question on what to do with the fortress. And we thought that maybe festival is the best way to analyze a lifeless territory, to bring some life into it and to understand how to continue. Last summer we had the first festival, which we managed to organize in a very short period of time, in half a year, and we were quite surprised that there were so many visitors, approximately 1,500, and now we have a goal to have 3 festivals by 2018, and I hope that they will really take place, because currently we don't have any legal rights to do that, because this fortress is managed by the privatization agency, and there are no political decisions on the future of this fortress. And I think that participation in this conference is very important, because we try to attract some attention to this fortress, because the political decision still has to be made. But still, we have begun our work, and we analyze the importance of this fortress for Riga and for the cultural space of Riga, because Bolderaja and Daugavgriva have been forgotten without any reasonable cause to do that. So I have to say that this is a very, very interesting place. And we began with a manifesto, and we tried to define the future of this space. We indicated that this could become an autonomous territory, an oasis, a specific, special area. So it's a huge territory, but it used to be an autonomous territory that hosted thousands of people. And nowadays, when we speak about the creation of communities, I think this is a wonderful place to develop a community. But then there is this important question. We don't want to take the fortress over as tourists for 3 days and maybe then leave and let it stay there alone and uncared for. We have to think about the local inhabitants. And if we speak about the festival, we had a program. 3 days were for a fee. You had to buy tickets. But on Sunday we have the open doors day, during which everyone could come and have a look at the fortress, basically what is going on in the fortress. And this is what we know and what we develop, because we think that it is very important to integrate the interests of local communities at an early stage. If you came to the fortress 2 months before the festival, there was nothing there and nothing would actually make you think that this fortress could be brought to life again. But we still had very many visitors, and 90% of them came for the first time to this fortress, and they were not even aware that something like this exists in Riga. Still, we have a lot of work to do. This is our the most important manager, Martin Schmidt. And as you see, there's a lot of work all around. And in our creative team, we spoke about the future of this fortress, and we thought that this could be a lifelong project, so that we are eventually able to give to Riga a wonderful fortress. And that's all from me, and I think we'll have probably many questions during the questions and answers session.
Paldies, Sandra. Paldies, Dāvi.